Look at this. 3 cucumbers in just from this single plant right here. Honestly, I stopped keeping track after that because I literally couldn't find anyone else to take them off my hands. But here's what blows my mind every single time. The plant right next to it, grown in the exact same dirt, getting the exact same sunlight from the exact same pack of seeds, gave me precisely 4. 4 sad, shriveled little things that never stood a chance. What made the difference? It wasn't dumb luck. It definitely wasn't some premium, overpriced fertilizer from the garden center. It was 1 cup of a specific mixture I poured on the roots of the thriving plant once a week. And you probably have the ingredients sitting in your kitchen and backyard right now. It's so ridiculously cheap and basic that I almost feel stupid sharing it. Almost. The frustrating truth about why this isn't common knowledge is that it works way too well and costs next to nothing, meaning nobody can make a profit selling it to you. There's no slick packaging, no patented formula, no month subscription. It's just an old school gardening secret handed down quietly between neighbors because it basically renders the commercial fertilizer industry useless. I picked up this trick from an older woman who lived a few doors down from my very first place. She was in her late 80s and her yard was an absolute jungle, and I mean that in the best way possible. We're talking softball-sized tomatoes, squash that seem to grow visibly overnight, and cucumbers, just mountains of them. She'd leave a card box on her porch filled to the brim with a little sign saying, "Please take some." For the longest time, I figured she just possessed some kind of magical soil. But it turned out she had a recipe, an old world family secret her grandmother brought over, perfected over decades. She finally shared it with me because, in her words, my garden looked tragic enough that I might actually listen. I know exactly what's crossing your mind right now. Just another internet garden hack that's totally bogus, right? I completely get it. I had the exact same reaction until I witnessed firsthand what 1 cup of this stuff a week could pull off. Hand on my heart, I've been getting my hands dirty in the garden for a solid fine years, and I've tested it all. The pricey liquid drops, the slow release pellets, that fish and mold stuff that makes your backyard smell like a rotting pier at low tide. Sure, some offered a temporary boost, but they always fizzled out. Absolutely nothing delivered the kind of insane, non-stop harvest that this simple weekly routine does. And the beautiful part is that once you grasp the science behind it, you'll recognize the logic everywhere in nature. It's not magic. It's just basic biology that most of us have forgotten. Let's break down the actual problem first, because I'm betting you know this pain all too well. You prep your beds in the spring, amend the dirt, baby your seedlings, and plant your cucumbers. For the first few weeks, everything is looking amazing. The vines are shooting up, the leaves are massive, those lit yellow flowers pop out, and then, boom, nothing. Or even worse, tiny cucumbers start forming, only to turn yellow, shrivel, and drop right off the vine. Sound familiar? You're watering like clockwork, checking for bugs, maybe even throwing down some extra fertilizer, and you still end up with a couple of bitter, funky look fruits that go straight to the compost pile. It is insanely frustrating because you did everything you were supposed to do. Listen, it's not you. The issue is that standard advice for feeding cucumbers is missing a huge chunk of the puzzle. It usually hyper-focuses on nitrogen while totally ignoring what a heavy fruiting plant actually demands to push out fruit at the frantic pace cucumbers are capable of. A cucumber isn't a piece of lettuce. With lettuce, you push nitrogen to grow leaves, and you eat the leaves. Simple. But a cucumber is a fruit born from a flower. That process requires a totally different terrestrial profile. Yes, the plant needs nitrogen to build the actual vine structure. But after that, it has to pump out hundreds of flowers, get them pollinated, and swell them into crisp water, dense fruits full of seeds. That transition from vegetative growth to making fruit is where most backyard gardens hit a brick wall. The plant gets stuck acting like a leafy green because we feed it like one, completely missing the specific elements needed for flower set and fruit development. So, the plant makes a rational biological choice. It aborts the fruit. Why waste resource on something it doesn't have the fuel to finish? Better to drop it and try again later. Except later never happens because the missing piece is still missing. Before we reveal what's in that one cup, let's talk about why the usual go-to solutions bomb out. I know, because I've tried them all, and I have the dead plants to prove it. First up, balanced fertilizers, like a classic 10-10. The logic seems sound. Give the plant a little bit of everything. But cucumbers aren't balanced eaters. They are absolute gluttons for potassium and calcium. A balanced feed usually pumps way too much nitrogen relative to what they need during the fruiting phase. That excess nitrogen pushes leafy growth at the expense of flowers. You end up with the most gorgeous, lush green vines on the block and exactly 0 cucumbers. It's like handing a marathon runner nothing but protein shakes and wondering why they gas out during the race. Then you've got the vinegar crowd. You see this all over the internet. Splash some vinegar in your watering can to acidify the soil and unlock nutrients. I tried this for an entire season. Here's reality. Unless your soil is extremely alkaline, which most garden dirt isn't, the vinegar does virtually nothing to the pH because soil is a massive natural buffer. What it can do is scorch your plant's microscopic root hairs if your ratio is off, and it can wipe out the beneficial soil microbes you desperately need for nutrient uptake. It's a fabricated solution to a problem most of us don't even have. What about Epsom salt? Magnesium sulfate. It's everywhere. Just sprinkle a spoonful near the base to green things up and boost blooms. Look, it provides magnesium and sulfur, which matter. But true magnesium deficiency is actually super rare in garden soil with any decent organic matter. And dumping unneeded magnesium creates a massive imbalance with your calcium uptake. A plant can only absorb so many positively charged ions at once. If you flood the root zone with magnesium, calcium gets locked out. And guess what cucumbers desperately need in massive quantities to build firm fruit and avoid blossom end rot? Calcium. So the Epsom salt trick can literally cause the exact problem you were trying to solve. It's like treating a headache by chopping off your head. Technically, the headache is gone, but it's not a reasonable fix. And then we have those commercial bloom boosters, usually rocking a massive middle number for phosphorus. Yes, phosphorus supports flowering and fruiting. But the truth is, most backyard soils already have adequate phosphorus, and piling on more doesn't boost your yield. It just washes away in the watershed and triggers algae bloom. Plus, half these products are just overpriced monopotassium phosphate with a flashy label. You're dropping $30 on something worth pennies, and you're over applying phosphorus your dirt doesn't even need. I've been there. My shed has the dusty bottles to prove it. The most desperate move I ever made was simply watch it goes. Cucumbers are mostly water, so more water equals more fruit. I gave them a deep soak every single day. What I actually got was root rot, fungal diseases all over the leaves, and the few fruits that survived tasted like watery mush. Cucumbers absolutely need steady moisture, but drown the roots cuts off oxygen, stresses the plant, invites disease, and causes fruit drop. It's not about volume. It's about the right water at the right time carrying the right dissolved nutrients. I spent years cycling through these fixes, each one promising the world and failing in its own unique way. The turning point happened on a scorching July afternoon about 8 years ago. I was staring down another row of big empty vines when my older neighbor shuffled over with her cane and a lit mason jar filled with a cloudy liquid. She took one look at my plants and dropped a line I'll never forget. She said, "They're hungry for the right meal, not just any meal." Then she handed me the jar, told me to pour exactly 1 cup around the base of my saddest plant and to come back in a week and do it again. I was too defeated to argue. I poured the cup And that was the week my entire garden changed. So, what was in the jar? I'm going to tell you right now, and I need you to resist the urge to brush it off because it sounds too simple. It's not vinegar, it's not salt, and it is definitely not harsh chemicals. The foundation of this entire recipe is plain old wood ash. Yep, the stuff left over at the bottom of a fire pit or a fireplace. And before you roll your eyes, let me explain what it actually does and why it is arguably the most underrated resource in your entire garden. Wood ash is roughly 20 to 30% calcium carbonate by weight. That's the exact same compound that makes up agricultural lime. It also packs a massive punch of potassium, usually around 5 to 7%, in a highly soluble form that plants can absorb immediately. On top of that, it has a full spectrum of micronutrients, boron, zinc, manganese, copper, that are crucial for flower development and fruit set, but are totally missing from standard fertilizers. When you burn a log, you're essentially concentrating decades of minerals that a tree pulled from deep underground. You are holding a mineral supplement custom made by a tree. But her method wasn't just tossing dry ash in the dirt. You can do that, but it blows away. And it can spike your soil's pH dangerously fast if you get heavy-handed. Instead, she brewed what she called an ash tea. It extracts the nutrients into liquid that is instantly available, gentle on the roots, and perfectly dosed. Here is the exact recipe: sifted wood ash. I want to be super clear on this. This has to be from natural, untreated wood. No painted scrap, no plywood, no construction lumber, no charcoal briquettes soaked in lighter fluid. Hardwood ash like oak, maple, or fruit woods is dense than softwood like. Condensed soft works in a pinch. Just make sure it is pure wood. If you don't have a fire pit, you can usually score some for free from a local pizza joint with a wood-fired oven. Take that single cup of sifted ash and dump it into a 5-gallon bucket. Fill it up with water, rainwater, or well water is best. If you have to use city tap water, let it sit outside for 2-4 hours, first so the chlorine can evaporate off, because we need to protect the beneficial microbes we're about to add. Stir that ash in the water hard. It's going to look like a bucket of gray soup. Let it steep for at least 24 hours. Give it a good stir whenever you walk past. The water will pull all that soluble potassium, calcium, and micronutrients right out of the ash, leaving the heavy charcoal bits behind. After day, it'll clear up a bit, leaving a layer of sediment at the bottom. You now have a gently alkaline, potassium and calcium, rich solution. That's the base. But here is where her recipe goes from standard absolute magic. She added one more ingredient to that steep bucket, and this is the piece that makes a 6% difference. She stirred in 1 tablespoon of unsulfured blackstrap molasses, not the light baking syrup, not the sweet stuff. Blackstrap molasses, the dark, thick, bitter residue left over after boiling sugarcane 3 times. This stuff is so dense with minerals that a single tablespoon gives you serious amounts of calcium, iron, magnesium, and potassium. But that's not even the main reason it goes in the bucket. The real secret is that blackstrap molasses is pure rocket fuel for soy microbes. The natural sugars feed the beneficial bacteria and fungi in your dirt, causing their populations to absolutely explode. These tiny workers are the bridge between the minerals in the soil and your plant's roots. They break down complex compounds in forms the cucumber vine can actually drink. They form symbiotic relationships with the root hairs, effectively expanding the plant's root system. When you pour this molasses, spiked tea on your soy, you aren't just feeding the plant. You are feeding the entire underground ecosystem that sustains the plant. It's the difference between handing someone a fish and teaching them to fish, except it's happening in real time right at the root zone. So, the final mix. 1 cup of sifted wood ash steeped in 5 gallons of water for 2-4 hours. Then stir in 1 tablespoon of unsulfured blackstrap molasses. That is it. That's the whole secret. A 5-gallon bucket treats about 50 cucumber plants for a week and costs maybe fine cents. The ash is free, and a $4 jar of molasses will last you all summer. If you bought it all from scratch, you'll spend less than the cost of a vending machine coffee for a whole season's worth of the most powerful cucumber fertilizer on earth. Now, how you apply this matters almost as what's in it. Do not is a foliar spray. The mineral will leave a residue that can cause spotting or sunburn. This is strictly a soil drench. Pour it slowly in a circle about 6 inches away from the main stem, not the stem itself. Wet stems just invite rot. Once your mature cucumber plant starts flowering, give it exactly 1 cup of this tea once a week. Exactly 1 cup. Do not eyeball it, and don't think more is better. The goal is steady, consistent nutrition, not a feast or famine roller coaster. Over-applying can spout other nutrients. 1 cup per plant per week. That is the golden rule. The best time to do this is early in the morning before the heat hits. The soil is cool, the plant is waking up and starting to pull up water, and the microbes are active. Give it a light sprinkle of regular water right after to help the tea wash down in the root zone. And a massive warning, never pour this onto bone, dry dirt. If your soil is completely parched, give the plants a normal watering first, wait an hour, and then hit them with the tea. Applying concentrate mineral to dry roots cause osmotic shock, where the salts literally suck water out of the plant instead of pushing it in. You're trying to help the plant, not stress it out. One hard lesson I learned: do not try to store this tea for more than a few days. The molasses will start to ferment, especially in the summer heat, and when you open that bucket, the smell will make you question every decision that led you to that moment. Make a fresh batch weekly. The actual hands-on time is about 5 minutes. If you have extra, pour it on your tomatoes, peppers, or squash. Any fruiting plant will love it. Just keep it away from leafy greens like lettuce or spinach. They don't need the massive potassium boost. And the calcium can actually make their leaves tough. Let me explain exactly why this works so incredibly well for cucumbers. Because the science here is just beautiful. Cucumbers are determinate fruiting crops. That means once they start flowering, they don't stop. They constantly push out new blooms and swell new fruit at the exact same time. This demands massive resources. The main driver of this process is potassium. It regulates the stomata. The pores on the leaves control water and gas change. It activates the enzymes that build proteins. Most importantly, it moves sugars from the leaves straight into developing fruit. Without enough potassium, the fruit doesn't fill out. It stays tiny, turns bitter, or the plant just drops it. Calcium is the second half of the puzzle. Calcium builds the cell walls and gives the fruit its firm structure. With that, you get bottom of the cucumber turns brown and sunken. You see it a lot in tomatoes, but cucumbers get it too, especially if watering is inconsistent. The catch with calcium is that it doesn't move easily through the plant. Once it's in a leaf, it stays there. The plant needs a steady, non-stops of soluble calcium right at the root tips to shuttle up to the new fruits. Tossing down some lime at the start of the year helps, but it usually gets bound up or washed away by the time the plant is in heavy production. This ash tea delivers soluble calcium right on schedule, exactly when the plant is working the hardest. And the molasses plays a crucial supporting role. Your soil isn't just dead dirt. It's a living ecosystem. Beneficial bacteria like Bacillus subtilis colonize the area right around the root. They unlock trapped phosphorus and potassium in the soil. They produce hormones that promote plant growth. They even boost the plant's immune system, essentially vaccinating it against disease. By adding molasses, you're feeding these bacteria a simple sugar they can eat instantly. Their numbers explode, and your plant reaps all the downstream rewards. You are basically hiring an army of microscopic gardeners to work your soil, and you're paying them in molasses. This is some new internet fad. Indigenous tribes across North America use woodwood ash to enrich the soil for their three sisters gardens: corn, beans, and squash. Squash is a massive feeder, just like cucumbers, and they deliberately work the ash from winter fires in the planting mounds. Early European settlers noticed that land cleared by burning brush grew significantly better crops. They didn't know the chemistry behind potassium or calcium. They just knew ash made things explode with growth. Using molasses as a soil amendment has been a cheap, reliable trick for farmers for over a century. When I first started using this tea, I was pretty cautious. I tested it on 3 plants and left the rest of my row alone as a control group. The results were mind-blowing. Within 2 weeks, the treated vines had notably thicker stalks, darker green leaves, and a crazy amount of female flowers. For the binners, cucumbers have separate male and female flowers. The females have a tiny mini cucumber at the base, while the males are just a stem and petals. You need both for pollination, but only the females become the vegetables you eat. My treated plants were pumping out female flowers like I had never seen. By week 3, I was pulling full-size cucumbers off them, while the control group was still just putting out regular blooms. By week 4, the treated plants were so heavy with fruit, I had to aggressively tie them to the trellis to keep the vines from snapping. The untreated plants eventually gave me a modest haul, maybe 8 to 10 cucumbers each all summer. The treated plants averaged well over 40. That single plant I showed you at the start, 3-7 cucumbers in 3 weeks at its peak. I want to be completely straight with you. This isn't a magic spell. It won't resurrect a diseased, bug-infested plant sit in the shade. You still have to nail the fundamentals. They need 6 to 8 hours of direct sun. They need well-draining soil packed with compost. They need consistent watering, about 1 inch to 1.5 inches a week. They need a solid trellis to climb, because letting them sprawl in the dirt invites disease. And they need pollinators. If the bees aren't showing up, you might have to hand pollinate them yourself. This tea isn't a replacement for basic gardening. It is the catalyst that takes a healthy plant and turns it into an absolute production monster. Let me address the elephant in the room that I know some of you are thinking about: pH levels. Wood ash is high alkaline. Pouring it on your soil every week sounds like a great way to ruin your garden, right? It's a totally valid concern, and I worried about it too. Here is why it generally isn't an issue. First, you use a heavily diluted solution. 1 cup of ash in 5 gallons of water is very mild. Yes, the tea's pH is around 8 or 9, but you are only applying 1 cup of that liquid to a massive volume of soil, and the Earth's natural buffering capacity handles it without a sweat. Second, cucumbers actually thrive in slight alkaline soil, preferring a pH right around 6, go to 7, 5. Since most backyard dirt, especially if you get a lot of rain, leans slight acidic, the tea actually pushes the soil right into cucumber's sweet spot. Third, as the microbes consume the molasses, they produce mild organic acids that naturally balance out the alkalinity. It regulates itself. That being said, if you live in an area with notorious high alkaline soil, anything over 7, do yourself a favor and get its cheap $10 pH test kit before you start. If you're already sitting really high, you can still use the tea, but cut it back to every other week and watch your leaves closely. If they start yellowing between the veins, that's a sign of iron lockout from high pH. Back off immediately if you see that. You also get asked all the time if you can use this on other stuff. The short answer is yes, with a few rules. Tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, squash, pumpkins, melons, any plant that produces heavy fruit will absolutely love this once they start blooming. The dose is exactly the same, 1 cup a week at the base. For root potassium will give you bigger, sweeter yields, but go easy because too much calcium can cause the roots to fork. Keep it entirely away from leafy greens. They need nitrogen, not potassium, and the calcium will just make your lettuce tough and chewy. If you want to use it on fruit trees, you'd need way too much liquid. So it's better to just lightly sprinkle the dry ash around the drip line and water it in. I still vividly remember the day I properly thanked my neighbor. It was late August, and I had just pulled that 3/7 cucumber off the vine. I filled a basket with the absolute best ones, walked down the street, and knocked on her door. She opened it, looked at the basket, and just smiled. She knew exactly what had happened. She invited me in for tea, the drinking kind this time, and we sat at her kitchen table talking about gardens for 2 hours. She told me about her grandmother, who fed her entire family through 2 world wars, used a plot of dirt barely bigger than my living room. This ash tea was one of the very few practical survival skills she brought over from the old country. She told me her grandmother never measured a thing. She just instinctively knew what the plants needed. Translated into a recipe with cups and tablespoons was her way of passing that intuitive wisdom down in a language a modern gardener like me could actually use. She was passing the torch. That afternoon fomented to change how I view gardening. We live in a society that constantly tells the answer to every problem comes in a plastic bottle from a big box store. Yellow leaves, buy a spray, no flowers, buy a problem. The entire industry relies on making you feel completely dependent and incompetent so they can keep turning a profit. But the truth is, the most powerful solutions are usually sitting right in front of us, in our pantries, in the leftover ash of a backyard fire, in the memories of the older generation who actually knew how to work the land. We've been conditioned to ignore these methods because they aren't shiny, they aren't patented, and nobody gets rich when you use them. That is exactly why you've never heard of this. It works way too well and it costs virtually nothing. So, here is what I'm asking you to do. If you have a fire pit, start saving your ash. Sift out the big charcoal chunks and keep the fine powder in a metal bucket with a tight lid. As long as it stays dry, it lasts forever. Or hit up a local wood fire pizza place. They'll usually be thrilled to give it away for free. Go to the grocery store, walk down the baking aisle, look on the very bottom shelf, and grab a jar of cheap, unsulfured blackstrap molasses. When your cucumbers finally start pushing out those yellow flowers, mix up a batch of this tea. Give them 1 cup a week, right at the roots, early in the morning. Don't splash the leaves. Give it a light water and then just step back and watch. Watch the female flowers bloom. Watch the tiny fruits swell up day by day. Watch your vines stay green and push out food long after everyone else's gardens have dried up and died. And when you are completely drowning in cucumbers, when you made every pickle recipe on earth and your coworkers, start avoiding eye contact because they know you're about to hand them another grocery bag full of produce. Remember the generations of gardeners who figured this out the hard way. This knowledge belongs to us. The only way it ever gets lost is if we stop talking about it. The massive corporations would love nothing more than for us to forget all of this. They want us mindlessly buying their products every spring, never ask questions, never trusting our own dirt. But we aren't going to play that game. We aren't afraid to experiment, and we definitely aren't too proud to take advice from the older generations who know what they're doing. If this video completely changed how you're going to treat your garden this year, do me a huge favor. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this with someone who needs to see it. Send it to your neighbor with the new raised beds. Send it to the guy at the community garden. Send it to that random person on the internet who is about to waste $30 on a useless bottle of Bloom Booster. The more of us who know this, the harder it is for the industry to bury it. Drop a comment down below and let me know how your cucumbers are doing, or share a piece of old school wisdom that a veteran gardener passed down to you. I read every single one, and I learned just as much from you guys as you do from me. Now get out there and brew some ash tea. Your garden is waiting.